ladies and gentlemen, here we have Ricard Ramon joining us online from what seems to be the powers, or the corridors of power in DG Agri. Ricard is head of unit in charge of policy perspectives in the Commission's Director General for Agriculture and Rural Development. Ricard emerged, let's say, as one of the key architects in the overhaul of the future CAP, and it's fair to say one of the key voices from DG Agri over the past 12 months or so. I would like to point out as well that this senior official joining us online, you spent your Erasmus year in the University of Limerick, Ricard, right?
Yes.
Many moons ago. We have some Limerick men and women in the audience. I'm not going to mention the year, that is unnecessary, but just to say that it's been many moons ago. So please give a warm welcome to Ricard Ramon. So what we're going to be talking about is, where are we at with the Common Agricultural Policy? So we've got about 20 minutes, right? We've got about 15 minutes, Ricard. We're slightly off schedule, but we're going to put you in the hot seat, if I may, for 15 minutes. And you might paint a picture for us. Let's go back a little bit first, just to paint the context, just to give us the context. July 16th, the proposals were tabled by DG Agri on the same day as the multi-annual financial framework, on that in sweltering heat in Brussels. You might first of all paint a very brief picture, and then we shall explore in more detail what are the milestones, what are the key challenges, and we'll bring it up to the present day as to where we're at. So Ricard, take it away. Be conscious of time because we're already, we'll keep the conversation moving, Ricard. So go right ahead.
Very good. First of all, thank you very much, Elo, and the Irish community here interested in the future of the CAP, and thanks, Rose, also for moderating this debate. And it's very clear, and I will go to the point. 1 year ago, last July, we put on the table a proposal, which in reality it's two proposals. It's the budget and the CAP, and the budget and the CAP this time are structured in a different way as compared to the past. And there is a big novelty, which is a change in the governance of all the different funds, which will be managed by member states. Now, the CAP, we keep the CAP as it is, in the sense that we keep all the instruments. The instruments, when I say the instruments, it's the CAP as you know it, the direct payments, which you know very well, the investments of the second pillar, ANCs, agro-environment, all the instruments, the support for the young farmers, all the instruments, all the tools that we have in the CAP are kept from now until 2034. And I think that's the important news. So all these tools are kept, but organized in a more efficient way. Streamlined, aligning better the instruments with the objectives. That's what we put on the table 1 year ago. And there it's very important to say that we continue to focus and to really put a big focus on the support to the income, to support the income of the farmers. This is why there is a high attention for the area-based direct payments, the direct payments that you have, and that will continue until 2034. And they are even improved, organized in a much more effective way. These tools are there, but as I said, the governance changes. And when I say the governance changes, is that because we were used to have a budget defined for all the 7 years, now we have a minimum budget defined. This minimum budget was established 1 year ago, and it's around 300 billion euros from now until 2034. And then there is a larger budget, which is the budget of what we call the NRP. When we say the NRP, it's the national reform plans, the national plans for investments and reforms, which is the broader plan where the CAP will be one part of it. But there will be other funds, like, for example, the cohesion, social, what it is now, the social funds. So there are other instruments which are part of this NRP. Here it is very important because since July, important developments took place. And one first development is that there was a concern about the need to tackle properly the developments and the challenges of the rural areas. And in order to tackle well this challenge, as a commission, we put on the table the possibility that the 10% of the money which is not allocated in the new funds will have to be spent in the rural areas. This is important because this comes around 48 billion euros. And then also there was another development, which is that also due to the big pressures on the sectors, also we did another change, which is to give the possibility out of this money, which is not allocated, to really shift 45 billion for agriculture as long as this is spent at the beginning of the period. So this puts us, as you can see, 45 plus 48, so more or less a bit. So we are talking about almost another 100 billion, which we can say that we can add to the budget of the CAP. In that sense, we think that we have a budget which is solid and which is there on the table. And on the other hand, we have now the discussions moving on, both on the budget and on the different aspects of our proposal. So this is, to put it in a nutshell, the big elements that we have now on the table.
Very, very well said indeed. And I think you captured it. I suppose you brought it up to the present day. As you said, those extra elements were tabled on the 7th of January. So you guys hit the ground running at the very beginning of this new year. But of course, as you say, the future of this policy is predicated on discussions going on at among EU leaders. Can you perhaps remind us where we're at in the agreement on that long-term budget? When can we expect EU leaders perhaps to sign off on that budget? And then we'll really know how much is on the table for the Common Agricultural Policy. Can you perhaps remind us where we're at with that?
Yeah, the discussions between EU leaders, so that would be the European Council, so the prime ministers, these discussions are going on, and our goal is to get the deal at the end of this year. So that's the goal, and we think this is possible. So, at this moment, I mean, there is nothing new that I can say. In fact, it is between the different 27 governments that they should try to get a deal before the end of the year. An element which is important is that these are the EU leaders. But then there is another element which is also linked to the EU leaders, which is what I said before, the NRP. So it is all these structural elements of the future budget, which is not just money, but it is the structure of the new way, the new governance to organize the funding of the different policies in the future. And this is important because there are two regulations. One is called the NRP regulation, another is the performance. And there are key elements which are in these two regulations. And here I would like to say that the works are really speeding up. And the Cypriot presidency, Cyprus is now the country that leads the negotiations among member states in the council. The Cypriot presidency is now making big efforts in order to get what we call a kind of a partial agreement among member states for these two regulations, for the NRP and for the performance regulation. This is important because this would mean that if there is this partial general agreement this month, it would mean that, among member states, we would have already a first tentative agreement on the big pillars of the structure. And then we have the other key player, who is the European Parliament, which is also trying to accelerate the works. And there will be a moment in time where the two will come together and they will need to have the final deal.
And that's when the fun will start, Ricard. That's certainly when the fun will start. If I may, I might pick up a point that was actually raised in one of the earlier sessions that we had on stage. It was raised by Mr. Jürgen Tack, Secretary General of the European Landowners Organization. I suppose the mantra coming from the European Commission at the moment, particularly your political master, Commissioner Hansen, is that direct payments should be better targeted to those that need them most. And Jürgen Tack's perspective is that they should be targeted at those who deserve it most, who work most in terms of providing those agri-environmental schemes, those services, those ecosystems and eco-schemes rather. So what is your point to that? It's been something that the ELO has been very vocal about. It's something that obviously has been from the start of this whole conversation, the better targeting of payments to those that need it most. What do you say to those, to the likes of ELO that is saying that it should be better targeted those that deserve it, that create perhaps more systems on the ground, agri-environmental measures on the ground?
Yeah, I think this is indeed one of the key elements of the proposal, is to really advance on this targeting. I think there are two different debates. One thing is the targeting the ones who need it or merit. I mean, at the end of the day, this is an issue of vocabulary, of wording. I mean, we think that the area-based direct payments need to be approached from a serious economic analysis in the sense of really target the groups that need this type of support. We are aware, and we have the data, we have the analysis that there are many farmers who, thanks to the market, and thanks to the prices, okay, can have a good and also due to its volume, its structure. I mean, they don't need the support of the direct payments, while others, because they are facing some particular challenges, because they don't have yet certain economies of scale, because of some structural issues, need more this public support. And we want this reflection to be done within each member state. Each country is different, and we are not going to impose particular very detailed ways in the way that these are implemented. But we think it's important that we have some common parameters. And this is why one key parameter is that, okay, I mean, the locations need to be redistributed, looking to the future, looking in objective criteria. That would mean that, okay, that the money goes where, based on this objective criteria, which could be physical elements, could be groups of farmers like the young or women or certain territories, certain types of farming, not necessarily the small, could be, for example, a small, but could be also certain farming models. So there are some groups that really are more vulnerable and need more the support, while others, maybe they need less support. So in that sense, but these will be decisions to be taken at national level. And here there are elements, for example, which need to be taken into account. Since we want to privilege the young, for example, we propose that the pensioners the people who already receive a pension as from 2032 would not benefit from the direct payments. This is just also another example of how we think we could really target better.
The young entrants and the younger generation, something we were discussing in just the session gone past on generation renewal. If I may, Ricard, I'm just going to open it up to the floor because it might be interesting. Obviously, we don't always have access to someone like a Ricard, so it could be a nice idea. Does anyone have a question for Ricard? Yes, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, Breffney O'Brien, Technical Beef Specialist at Agriland. Yeah, thanks for the presentation there, Ricard. Just in relation to the young farmer supports, I suppose there's a lot of talk about, and the Commissioner has said that he's committed to supporting generation renewal and young farmers in the next CAP. Do you think that this could potentially be delaying young farmers entering the sector, and maybe should any of these support payments be issued retrospectively to young farmers who maybe set up their herd numbers this year or set up as young farmers this year?
No, we think that, and in fact, we are doing big efforts from the Commission to really guarantee that all the different policy instruments, all the different flows really go, and that the money goes towards the young farmers. We know that, I mean, this is a challenge in Ireland, like in many countries. So our new proposal precisely reinforces a lot the support for the young farmers. In fact, the young farmers will have a starter kit pack, which this starter I don't know now how to say it in English. The kit. So a kind of a package of measures which will be developed for the young, and in particular also, and that's very important, the direct payments as it happens now. Now today there is a top-up. You have it in Ireland. You have a top-up. So a young farmer, because he's young, so has a level of support for hectare which is higher. So this is what we want to continue in the future. But the challenges of the young go much beyond that, and that's why we think that one element of the young is also linked to the need also to accelerate this transformation and facilitate that they have a better access to the land, and that there is a proper intergenerational transition. So the old really give the land to the young. And then it's very important also, and there is a very important work stream where we are working a lot, and it's also the financial flows for investments to really guarantee that the ones who want to invest and that want to innovate have access to this credit. That's why there are many possibilities with investment support. You have it in the second pillar of the CAP, and then also important facilities that we got from the European Investment Bank. So from our side, we think that the young farmers will be very well equipped in the next years.
And do you think, just one more follow up on that then, I suppose, do you think that young farmers, or is it envisaged that young farmers who are going out there maybe leasing land would be allocated any higher or preferential support than young farmers who would happen to be lucky enough to inherit land? Like tackling the land access and the generational renewal issues, like both of which.
No, that's okay. That's a good point. This will depend also. This will depend also on how it is structured and how it is organized, the overall specific aspects and technical aspects of the implementation of the direct support. But we hope that we hope that we will find a good way, so the young farmers have a proper remuneration.
And a lot of these decisions, I suppose, Breffney, they're taken at national level, I would imagine,
Yes.
right? As well, so it's beyond the scope of the European Commission, particularly when it comes to land access. I'll take one more question, Breffney, if you don't mind. This gentleman up here. No, right. Just Ricard, stick with us. We have one more question, and then we'll wrap it up. Ricard, thank you.
One question here. When we're looking at this, when you're saying you try to target the payments and so on to those who have don't have a good economy and so on. But if we continue doing this and so on, how we are living under competitiveness in the world, and we're going to produce to the world market prices. And those who are not effective, and how do you look upon structural change for the future for the European farmers to become competitive in the world market? Or are we just going to produce to our own market? Because if we're doing what you are doing, I think in the long term, we're putting ourselves in a bad position if we are going to be part of the world community and trade.
Okay, Ricard, do you want to respond to that?
Thank you for the question. And this is important. It's important to clarify that the part of the money which needs to be allocated to the farmers most in need is just a part of the cake. It's not the full cake. And I think that's important that we take this into account. So we think that the area-based direct payments should go mainly to the ones most in need, which means that, that we need to redistribute. But we have many other chapters where maybe the ones who are more competitive, the ones that you have in mind, who really need certain type of support to be competitive in the current world, maybe the type of support is not the direct payment. Maybe it's an investment, maybe it's a support to really have an access to much more better technology. Maybe it's the agro-environment, as you said before. Agro-environment, by the way, all the environmental transition, this is open to everybody, of course, small, large, without any differences. So we think that the targeting means that the needs are different. And just an example, for example, the large holdings, and in this context that you presented very well of these problems of competitiveness and where we have also big turbulences and big geopolitical dynamic, maybe maybe for some sectors, it is more important to help, for example, with insurance support, with risk management, and with mechanisms really that can really guarantee that this big company or big player can really make it under certain geopolitical difficulties, rather than certain type of support, which at the end of the day might be a very limited part of his or her income. So we think that at the end of the day, let's find where there is a proper added value of each of the different chapters of the support. And we think that we can find ways to really have an efficient distribution of the support.
Okay, well, we shall wait and see, Ricard. You're a busy man, and we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. It is something that we will be reporting on. The hacks among us will be reporting on this over the course of the next few months. We're entering a critical juncture, whether it comes to the budget, the long-term budget, and the future of the Common Agricultural Policy, which the Irish presidency will be taking forward in the second half of the year. So, slán go fóill, Ricard, you're more than welcome to come back to Ireland whenever you please. There's an open invite, so thank you very much from Dublin. A warm welcome, a warm thank you to Ricard, Ramon.